The siren of the Springfield County Jail pierced the pre-dawn silence at 5:47 a.m., waking entire neighborhoods in this medium-sized Ohio town of 60,000 people. Detective Lisa Stewart took the last sip of her coffee when her phone rang. The display showed the name of Sheriff Thomas Wilson. "Stewart, we have a jailbreak. Marcus Cole, 32, was serving 10 years for armed robbery. He disappeared during the morning head count. Clark wants to see you immediately." Lisa fastened her holster and headed for the door. Escapes from the county jail were rare. The last one had been 7 years ago, and that fugitive had been caught 2 hours later while trying to steal a car in an industrial area of Springfield. But something in the sheriff's voice told her that this case would be more complicated. The Springfield County Jail was a massive gray building constructed in the 1970s on the outskirts of town, near an industrial area. It could hold up to 800 inmates, but usually housed around 650. The place was not known for escapes, mainly because most of the inmates were locals serving short sentences for minor crimes or awaiting transfer to state prisons to serve longer sentences. Warden Sean Clark met Lisa at the main entrance. At 48, he looked like a man who never smiled. Tall, thin, with graying hair and steely eyes, Clark had run the prison with an iron fist for 15 years. The inmates feared him, the guards respected him, and the state administration considered him a model administrator. In town, he was known as the man who had brought order to a once troubled institution. "Detective Stewart, thank you for your quick response." His voice was even, emotionless. "Let me fill you in on the case." They passed through several checkpoints to Clark's office on the 3rd floor of the administrative wing. The windows overlooked the industrial area of Springfield. Factory chimneys, warehouses, railroad tracks. The walls were decorated with diplomas, photographs from official events, and awards for long service. The only personal photograph on the desk was of Clark with his wife in front of Lake Erie. Marcus Cole, 32 years old, born and raised in Springfield, East Side, convicted 5 years ago for armed robbery of a gas station on Main Street. Sentenced to 10 years, eligible for parole after 7 with good behavior. Clark handed Lisa the case file. Behavior has been exemplary until recently. Lisa studied the photo in the file. Marcus Cole didn't look like a typical criminal. Ordinary face, short dark hair, brown eyes. She could have met him at the Springfield Mall and not noticed him. What changed in his behavior? A month ago, he became withdrawn and aggressive. He received 2 disciplinary infractions. He refused to eat and didn't go to the library, even though he used to read all the time. He stopped going to classes at the Learning Center, where he was studying basic computer skills. The prison psychologist thought he was depressed. Any reason for that? Clark paused for a few seconds. The death of his sister, Naomi Cole, 28 years old. She committed suicide a month ago, sleeping pill overdose. Lisa looked up from the file. Did he request leave for the funeral? Yes, it was denied. Why? Standard procedure. Cole was convicted of a serious crime involving a weapon and is considered a potential danger to the public. In addition, he cannot afford to pay for security during his leave. A minimum of 4 officers are required to escort such prisoners, and the state is not obligated to cover such expenses for prisoners serving time for Class A crimes. Lisa nodded, though something tightened inside her. She understood the logic of the system, but she also understood what it meant to lose a loved one and not be able to say goodbye. Tell me about the escape. He disappeared between the midnight check and the 6 in the morning. Cell number 247, 4th floor, East Wing. His cellmate, Jimmy Rodriguez, a small-time drug dealer from the South Side, was still asleep when they discovered he was gone. He swears he didn't hear a thing. They headed for Cole's cell. The prison corridors were wide but gloomy, lit by dim fluorescent lights. The sounds of the city, train horns, traffic on nearby roads, penetrated the thick walls. The smell of disinfectant mingled with the smell of stale air and human sweat. Cell 247 looked like all the others. 2 narrow beds, a metal toilet, a small sink, and a barred window that looked out onto the rooftops of the east side. Here, Clark pointed to the ventilation hole above the top bunk. The metal grate hung on a single bolt. Looks like he worked on this for a few days. He used a spoon he sharpened on the concrete wall. Lisa examined the hole. Where does the ventilation lead? This building is old, and the ventilation system is complicated. The shaft goes down through all the floors to the basement, then to an old boiler room that hasn't been used since 2018, when we switched to a new heating system. From there, there's an exit to the outside through an emergency hatch that opens onto an alley behind the building. When was the last time this exit was checked? Just this morning. We welded it shut 3 years ago after an inspection by the Department of Corrections, but the weld was poor. Cole knocked it out from the inside. They went down to the basement via the service elevator. James Riley, the deputy warden, was already examining the escape site. He was a man in his 40s, overweight, with a permanently worried expression on his face. Unlike Clark, he seemed like a man who was often worried. He had worked in the prison for 20 years, rising from a regular guard. Detective Stewart, James Riley, here's the escape route. He shone a powerful flashlight into a narrow ventilation shaft. He squeezed through here, crawled about 50 meters to the boiler room through a maze of air ducts, and broke the weld on the hatch. He must have planned this in advance and studied the layout of the building very well. Lisa peered into the shaft. How long could it have taken? If you knew the exact route and were in excellent physical shape, 40 minutes at most. Cole worked out regularly in the prison gym and was one of the fittest inmates. Plus, he worked in the prison laundry, which gave him access to the technical rooms. They examined the boiler room, a large room with massive pipes and shut-off boilers. The emergency hatch was deformed, the metal bent. It would have taken considerable physical strength to break the weld from the inside. Where does this exit lead? To an alley between our building and a construction materials warehouse. From there you can get to Industrial Road and reach any part of the city. They went upstairs where Clark showed Lisa Cole's personal belongings. A few clothes, some books on history and psychology, photographs. Among the photos was one that caught Lisa's attention, a young woman in a white nurse's uniform standing at the entrance to a hospital, smiling at the camera. On the back was written, Naomi, first day at Springfield General Hospital, 2020. His sister? Yes, the only family he has left. His parents died in a car accident on I-70 when he was 18. Naomi was 4 years younger, but they were very close. Lisa studied the photo. Naomi Cole was a beautiful woman with kind eyes and a sincere smile. In the background was the familiar facade of Springfield General Hospital. It was hard to imagine that she had taken her own life. Did you know her personally? I saw her a few times when she came to visit. She was a quiet, well-mannered girl. She worked as a nurse in the hospital's therapeutic ward. Her colleagues spoke highly of her. Why did she kill herself? Clark shrugged. I don't know the details. The Springfield police investigated the death and ruled it a suicide. No suspicious circumstances. She was found in her apartment on Elm Street, an overdose of barbiturates. Lisa sensed that something was wrong, but she couldn't put her finger on it. She returned to the folder with Cole's case. Who else among the inmates was close to Cole? He kept to himself. The only person he sometimes talked to was Dr. Hayes, our prison doctor. Cole suffered from migraines and regularly visited the infirmary. Hayes has been working here for 10 years and knows many of the inmates personally. I need to talk to him. Of course, but first let me show you what we've already done. Clark led Lisa to the central control room, a large room with dozens of monitors displaying images from different parts of the prison and the surrounding area. 4 guards were on duty, monitoring all sectors of the complex. We've reviewed the footage from the last 48 hours. Cole was last seen on camera the day before yesterday at 7:30 p.m. when he returned to his cell after dinner. He wasn't seen at all yesterday. He may have already been in the ventilation shaft. What about the cameras in the basement? There are 3 cameras, but they only cover the main corridors. The boiler room and technical rooms are not monitored. We were planning to install additional cameras as part of a security upgrade next fiscal year. Lisa realized that Cole had thoroughly studied the security system. This was not a spontaneous escape by a desperate man. It was a well-planned operation that had been weeks in the making. Have you notified other law enforcement agencies? Yes. The information has been passed on to the state police and the FBI has been notified. Roadblocks have been set up on all major roads leading out of Springfield. I-70, Highway 40, the roads to Dayton and Columbus. Patrols are combing the industrial area and the outskirts of the city. K-9 units have been called in. Do you think he got far? Clark walked over to the window, which overlooked the entire city of Springfield, the residential areas, the industrial zone, and the business district in the distance. Cole is smart. He knows this city like the back of his hand. He grew up here. If he just wanted to hide, he would have chosen a different time and place, tried to get to a big city like Columbus or Cincinnati. But he ran away from here, from this prison, from Springfield. I think he has unfinished business here. Warden's words sounded ominous. Lisa felt a chill between her shoulder blades. What unfinished business? I don't know for sure, but a man doesn't plan such a risky escape without a serious reason. His sister's death changed him dramatically. It made him dangerous. In 15 years on the job, I've learned to read prisoners. Cole became a different person after hearing about Naomi's suicide. Lisa left the prison with the feeling that this case would be one of the most difficult of her career. Marcus Cole was not just an escaped convict. He was a man with nothing to lose, and men like that are capable of anything. As she drove away from the prison grounds, she glanced at Springfield, the town where she had grown up, where she knew every street. Somewhere out there was a man driven by pain and a thirst for what? Justice? Revenge? She got into her car and called the station. Wilson? It's Stewart. I need all the information on Naomi Cole's death, the complete investigation report, and find the addresses of everyone who could have been involved in her suicide. I have a feeling our fugitive isn't going to leave Springfield. Detective Lisa Stewart spent the rest of the morning in the Springfield Police Department archives, studying the case of Naomi Cole's death. The file was thin, only 20 pages, which in itself suggested that the investigation had been perfunctory. Naomi Cole, 28, nurse in the therapeutic ward of Springfield General Hospital. Found dead in her apartment at 847 Elm Street, apartment 3B on March 15, 2025, at 2:30 p.m. The body was discovered by her neighbor, Mrs. Edna Parker, who came to check on Naomi after she hadn't picked up her mail for 3 days in a row. Lisa carefully studied the photos from the crime scene. It was a small, tidy one-room apartment. Naomi was lying on the bed in her pajamas, with an empty whiskey bottle and a bottle of sleeping pills next to her. On the bedside table was a suicide note written in Naomi's hand. "I can't go on anymore, I'm sorry, tell Marcus I love him." A toxicology report showed a lethal dose of barbiturates combined with alcohol. The time of death was determined to be March 12th, 13. There were no signs of violence on the body, and the apartment had not been broken into. A standard suicide, as the police called it. But something bothered Lisa. She reread the report by Detective Michael O'Connor, an experienced officer who had retired 2 months earlier. His report was brief and dry. All facts point to suicide. The motive was depression due to family problems and work. Case closed. Family problems? What family problems could a girl have whose only relative was a brother in prison? Lisa decided to start with the hospital. Springfield General Hospital was a modern red brick medical complex in the center of town. Lisa knew the place. 5 years ago, her father had been treated there after a heart attack. She found the medical ward on the 3rd floor and introduced herself to the head nurse, Carol Mitchell. Carol was a woman in her 50s with gray hair pulled back in a strict bun and tired but kind eyes. She had worked at the hospital for 30 years, the last 10 as head nurse of the ward. Naomi Cole? Of course I remember her. A good girl, hard-working, the patients loved her. Carol pointed to a chair in her small office. But something's been wrong with her for the last few months. What exactly? She became nervous, distracted. She made a few mistakes with the medication. Nothing serious, but it wasn't like Naomi. She was always very careful. Did she mention any problems? Carol paused, choosing her words carefully. She mentioned her brother in prison. She was very worried about him, but there was something else. She was afraid of someone. Lisa leaned forward. Afraid? Of whom? I don't know exactly, but in the last few weeks she became very cautious. She looked around, flinched at loud noises. She asked to be walked to her car after late shifts. Did she file any complaints? Did she contact the police? No, nothing like that. When I asked her what was wrong, she said everything was fine. but I could tell that wasn't true. Lisa wrote down every word. Who was she close to at work? Dr. Emily Harris from the cardiology department. They went to medical school together and had been friends for years. And Jason Miller, a technician in the lab. He was seeing her. A romantic relationship? I don't know. Naomi was very private about her personal life, but Jason often came to our department under various pretexts and asked her out for coffee. Lisa got the contact details for Dr. Harris and Jason Miller. Dr. Harris was in surgery, but Miller agreed to meet in an hour. The lab was in the basement of the hospital. Jason Miller turned out to be a thin man in his 30s with nervous mannerisms and constantly darting eyes. When Lisa mentioned Naomi's name, his face changed. Naomi was special. We had met several times, gone to the movies, to a cafe on Main Street. I thought there was something between us. When did you last see her? A week before it happened. I asked her out to dinner, but she declined. She said she wasn't ready for a relationship. How did she look? Was she upset about something? Jason rubbed his hands nervously. She was scared. She didn't want to say why, but I could tell something was really bothering her. I offered to help, but she refused. Did she mention anyone in particular? Maybe she talked about any problems? Only about her brother. She was very upset that she couldn't visit him. And then, he paused. Then what? She said that some people think they can do whatever they want to others and get away with it. That sooner or later you have to pay for everything. Lisa felt she was getting close to something important. Did she mention anyone in particular? No, but I got the impression she was talking about someone influential, someone she couldn't just avoid. After talking to Miller, Lisa met Dr. Emily Harris in the hospital cafeteria. Harris was an attractive woman in her mid-30s, confident and straightforward. Naomi was my best friend since college. I still can't believe she killed herself. Emily clutched her coffee cup with trembling hands. It's not like her. Why? Naomi was a fighter. When her parents died, she didn't break down. She finished college, got a job, kept in touch with her brother in prison. She wasn't the type to give up. But has anything changed in the last few months? Emily nodded. After New Year's, she became different, withdrawn, nervous. I tried to talk to her a few times, but she refused. Was she seeing anyone? Any problems in her personal life? I don't think so. Naomi was very cautious with men after a bad relationship a few years ago. She was completely focused on her work and her brother. Any problems at work? Emily paused, clearly thinking about something. I don't know if I should say. Dr. Harris, this is an investigation. Everything you say could be important. In January, we had an inspection from the state health department. Naomi was very nervous about it. She said something about improper procedures, about things being covered up. What procedures? I don't know specifically, but she mentioned medication for inmates. Lisa perked up. Medication for inmates? Yes. Our hospital has a contract with the county jail. We supply medication and sometimes take inmates in for treatment. Naomi worked with those deliveries. And what was bothering her? She said someone was overcharging, ordering expensive drugs instead of cheaper alternatives. Taxpayers' money was being wasted. Lisa felt the pieces of the puzzle starting to fall into place. Was she going to report it? I think so. Naomi was a woman of principle. She couldn't stand injustice. Who was responsible for the prison contract? The hospital administration, but Naomi and a few other people worked directly with the documents. After the hospital, Lisa went to Elm Street to look at Naomi's apartment. The building was old but well kept, typical of Springfield's working-class neighborhood. The manager, Mr. Davis, an elderly man with a gray beard, showed her to the third floor. She was a quiet girl, no problems. She paid her rent on time and the neighbors had no complaints. He unlocked the door. The police have already looked around, but they didn't touch anything. The apartment was small but cozy. Lisa slowly walked through the rooms, trying to feel the atmosphere of Naomi's last days. There were photos hanging on the bedroom wall. Naomi with her brother, with friends, at her medical school graduation. Medical journals and notebooks with notes lay on the desk. Lisa looked through them, mostly work notes, shift schedules, patient names. But in one notebook, she found some strange entries. Account number 4821, Order for $15,000 worth of insulin. There are only 12 diabetic patients. Is that too much? Antibiotics. 3 times the usual amount has been ordered. Check with previous years. Who signs these orders? Check their authority. Lisa photographed the pages. Naomi had indeed been investigating financial irregularities related to the prison contract. In the kitchen, she found a calendar with notes. March 10th was marked meeting, 7 p.m. 2 days before her presumed date of death, Naomi had met with someone. Who? Lisa went downstairs to the neighbor who had found the body, Mrs. Parker. Edna Parker was a spry old lady in her 70s who clearly knew everything that went on in the building. Naomi was a golden girl. She helped me with my shopping and took care of my cat when it was sick. Mrs. Parker invited Lisa in for tea, but lately, something had been bothering her. Did you see anyone come to her house, especially on March 10th? Yes, a man came in the evening. He was well-dressed and drove an expensive car. Lisa took out her notebook. Can you describe him? He was about 50 years old, tall, with gray hair. He spoke quietly, but Naomi looked upset after he left. And the car? A black sedan, new. Definitely not from around here. How long was he there? About 40 minutes. I was watching the news. When he left, Naomi was crying. I saw her through the window. Lisa felt a rush of excitement. Someone had met with Naomi 2 days before her death, after which she cried. And 2 days later, she was dead. Returning to the station, she found Detective O'Connor on his home phone. Michael O'Connor lived in the suburbs of Springfield, enjoying his retirement after 30 years of service. The Naomi Cole case? Of course I remember. A routine suicide, nothing suspicious. O'Connor's voice sounded tired. Why are you interested in this case? It's connected to a prison escape. Marcus Cole is her brother. I see, but the case was closed. The girl couldn't handle the pressure and took pills. Michael, did you check her finances? Her work connections? Why? Suicide is suicide. We've got our hands full. We don't have time to dig deep. Lisa realized that O'Connor had conducted a superficial investigation, either out of laziness or for other reasons. Who gave the order to close the case quickly? Pause. No one. All the facts pointed to suicide. Michael, I've known you for 10 years. You usually investigate cases like this more thoroughly. Another pause, longer this time. Lisa, sometimes it's better not to dig too deep. The girl is dead, you can't change that. Why make life harder for the living? After talking to O'Connor, Lisa realized that Naomi's death had been closed prematurely. Perhaps under pressure, but from whom? She returned to Naomi's notes and began studying the financial documents of the prison contract, which she had managed to obtain through the prosecutor's office. The numbers did look suspicious. The orders for medication exceeded the actual needs several times over. Someone was making money on inflated supplies. Lisa compiled a list of people who had access to the contract: hospital administrators, prison officials, and drug suppliers. At the center of this scheme was Warden Sean Clark, who signed the drug orders for the inmates. Naomi Cole discovered financial irregularities and was planning to expose them. Someone met with her on March 10th and convinced her to keep quiet. But did they convince her? Or did they threaten her? 2 days later, the girl was dead. Now Lisa understood why Marcus Cole had escaped from prison. He wasn't just mourning his sister. He knew or suspected that her death was not suicide, and now he was somewhere in Springfield, looking for the person responsible for Naomi's death. The next morning, Lisa Stewart arrived at the Springfield County Jail with new questions. She had spent the night studying financial documents and trying to piece together the facts she had uncovered. The picture was gradually becoming clearer, but key details were still missing. Dr. Robert Hayes met her in the prison infirmary. At 42, he looked tired. Gray streaks in his dark hair, wrinkles around his eyes, slightly sloping shoulders. 10 years as a prison doctor had taken their toll. Detective Stewart, Warden Clark said you wanted to talk about Marcus Cole. Hayes invited her into his office, a small room with medical reference books, a computer, and a medicine cabinet. Doctor, I know Marcus often came to you with migraines. How would you describe his mental state over the last month? Hayes sat down at his desk and stared out the window thoughtfully. He changed after he heard about his sister's death. He became withdrawn and aggressive. The migraines became more frequent, but that was more of a psychosomatic manifestation of stress. Did he talk about his sister? About what happened? Marcus blamed himself a lot. He said he should have been there for her, that if he'd been allowed to go to the funeral. Hayes fell silent. What else did he say? "Detective, I'm a doctor. Everything my patients tell me is confidential." Lisa leaned forward. "Dr. Hayes, an escaped prisoner could be dangerous to the public. Anything that could help find him is important." Hayes was silent for a long time, clearly struggling with himself. Finally, he sighed. Marcus didn't believe Naomi killed herself. He said she would never do that someone killed her. Did he name names? Did he suspect anyone in particular? No, but he said that Naomi had found out something at work, something that might have upset someone. Lisa felt her heartbeat quicken. What exactly did she find out? "I don't know the details, but Marcus mentioned money, some kind of incorrect billing." "Doctor, do you know anything about medication deliveries to the prison? How orders are placed?" Hayes visibly tensed. "I compile lists of necessary medications and send them to the administration. That's not my job." "Who makes the final decisions about orders?" "Warden Clark signs all the documents, but we determine the specific drugs and quantities with the medical staff." "Doctor, have you ever noticed any discrepancies? Ordered one thing and received something else?" A long pause. Hayes stood up and walked over to the window. "Detective, I'm just doing my job. I treat people." "But you've noticed something, haven't you?" Hayes turned to her. His eyes betrayed a struggle between fear and conscience. "Sometimes I asked for cheap generics, and we were supplied with expensive original drugs. They said it was because of the contract." "How often did this happen?" "Regularly for the last 2 years, especially insulin, antibiotics, painkillers." "Did you raise the issue?" "I tried, but they explained that the supplier could replace the drugs with higher quality ones at no extra cost." "Did you believe that?" Hayes returned to the table. "Detective, I'm a doctor, not an economist. If prisoners get better medicine, what's wrong with that? It's bad because someone is profiting from taxes, and possibly killing people who find out." Hayes paled. "You think Naomi was really killed?" "What do you think?" "I don't know, but if it's true..." He fell silent. "Doctor, I understand you're afraid for your job, but we're talking about people's lives. Marcus Cole is out there somewhere, and he could be dangerous. If you know anything, tell me." Hayes was silent for a long time, then opened his desk and took out a folder. "I keep my own records, unofficially." He showed Lisa a notebook with notes from the last 2 years. The numbers spoke for themselves. Insulin was ordered for $15,000 when the maximum requirement was $5,000. Antibiotics were ordered in triple quantities. Painkillers were ordered in quintuple quantities. "Doctor, according to your calculations, how much are the expenses overstated?" "Approximately $200,000 to $300,000 a year." Lisa whistled. That was serious money, even by city standards. "Who else knows about these discrepancies?" "I don't know. I haven't told anyone. I was afraid of losing my job." "Could Naomi Cole have known about this?" "Possibly. She worked with the hospital's supply records." Lisa realized she had found a motive for Naomi's murder. The girl had uncovered a corruption scheme worth hundreds of thousands of dollars and was going to expose it. "Doctor, I need a list of everyone who has access to medical orders." Hayes compiled a list. Warden Clark, Riley's deputy, prison chief accountant Susan Davis, a representative of the medical supplier, and several hospital employees. As she left the prison, Lisa ran into Warden Clark in the hallway. "Detective Stewart, any news on the search for Cole?" "We're working on it. Could you answer a few questions about medical supplies?" Clark's face became impenetrable. "Is this related to the escape?" "Possibly. I found out that Cole's sister was interested in your medical contracts before she died." "I don't see how that's relevant to our investigation." "Warden Clark, do you sign off on medication orders?" "Yes, that's part of my job." "Do you verify that the orders match the deliveries?" "We have staff who do that." "But you have the final say." Clark stopped and turned to her. "Detective, if you have specific charges, file them officially. Otherwise, allow me to continue with my duties." Lisa realized that further conversation was pointless. Clark became alert and closed up. The next stop was Med Supply Inc., the prison's main supplier of medications. The office was located in Springfield's business district, on the 5th floor of a modern building. Sales Director Richard Stone greeted her in a spacious office with a panoramic view of the city. He was a man of about 45, dressed in an expensive suit, with a gold watch and the confident manner of a successful businessman. "Detective Stewart, how can I help you?" "Mr. Stone, tell me about your contract with the county prison." "It's one of our main contracts. We've been working with them for 5 years and have an excellent relationship." "And who makes the decisions about specific deliveries?" "We receive orders from the prison and fill them according to the contract." "But sometimes you deliver expensive drugs instead of cheap ones." Stone smiled. "We always strive to provide the best quality. If we can deliver a more effective drug at the same price, why not?" "At the same price? But the bills say otherwise?" The smile disappeared from Stone's face. "Detective, all our deliveries are in accordance with the contract and have been agreed with the prison administration." "With whom exactly?" "With Warden Clark himself." Lisa realized she had found another link in the chain. Stone and Clark had colluded to inflate the cost of deliveries. "Mr. Stone, have you met Naomi Cole from Springfield General Hospital?" Stone visibly tensed. "I don't recall that name." "The nurse who worked on your delivery documents. I may have met her. We work with many medical facilities. She committed suicide a month ago." "I'm sorry to hear that, but I don't see how that's relevant to our business." Lisa stood up. "Perhaps we'll find out soon." As she left the office, she noticed a black BMW sedan in the building's parking lot, exactly as Mrs. Parker had described. A folder with the Med Supply logo was lying on the driver's seat. Lisa took a photo of the license plate and sent it to the traffic police. The response came half an hour later. The BMW was registered to Richard Stone, so it was Stone who had met with Naomi on March 10th. What had he said to her? Threatened her? Tried to bribe her? Lisa returned to the station and drew up a diagram of the corruption network. At the center was Warden Clark, who signed the inflated orders. His partner was Richard Stone, who supplied expensive drugs at inflated prices. They probably split the difference between themselves. Naomi Cole discovered the scheme and was going to expose it. Stone met with her, possibly to try to persuade her to keep quiet or to threaten her. When that didn't work, the phone interrupted Lisa's thoughts. It was Sheriff Wilson. "Stewart, we have a problem. Clark reported that someone broke into his house last night." "What was stolen?" "Nothing, but someone rummaged through his personal documents. I think our fugitive got to Warden." Lisa felt a chill. Marcus Cole had already begun his hunt. "Where is Clark now?" "In jail, under guard, but he's scared." "Tom, we need to set up round-the-clock surveillance on anyone who could have been involved in his sister's death." "We don't have the resources for that kind of operation." "Then at least keep an eye on Clark and Stone. Marcus is hunting them." After talking to the sheriff, Lisa drove to Clark's house in the prestigious West Hills neighborhood. It was a 2-story mansion with a perfect lawn and expensive cars in the garage. Clearly not the kind of place a prison guard could afford. The signs of a break-in were barely noticeable. Professional work. Marcus had been preparing for this day for 5 years, learning skills that might come in handy. Inside the house, everything was neat, but Lisa noticed signs of a search. Someone had been looking for documents very carefully, not wanting to attract attention. In Clark's study, she found a safe, open. Marcus was not only a good burglar, but also a safe cracker. What was he looking for? Lisa wondered. Documents about the corruption scheme? Evidence of involvement in Naomi's death? On the table was a photograph of Clark with his wife and 2 children, a boy and a girl around 10 or 12 years old. The family idol of a man who profited from the suffering of prisoners. Lisa returned to the station, realizing that time was running out. Marcus Cole knew the truth about his sister's death and was methodically preparing for revenge. He had already been to Clark's house, studied his routine, and possibly found the evidence he needed. The next step would be murder. Lisa understood Marcus's logic. The justice system had failed his sister. The police had conducted a superficial investigation into her death. The corrupt officials had gone unpunished. In his mind, there was only one way for justice to prevail. But Lisa couldn't let him become a murderer, even if his motives were understandable. She called the sheriff. "Tom, I need to talk to Clark right now." "He refuses to talk without a lawyer. Tell him Marcus Cole knows about his drug scheme and that we have proof." An hour later, Clark agreed to talk. Warden Sean Clark sat in the conference room of the police station, nervously fiddling with his tie. Next to him sat attorney David Harper, an expensive lawyer whom Clark had called immediately after the sheriff's call. Lisa entered the room with a folder of documents, ready for the decisive conversation. "Mr. Clark, we know about your scheme to overcharge for medical supplies," she began without preamble. Harper raised his hand. "Detective, my client will not respond to allegations without specific evidence." Lisa opened the folder and laid photocopies of financial documents on the table. "Insulin orders exceed demand by 3 times. Antibiotics by 5 times. In 2 years, your collusion with Richard Stone has netted you about $500,000 in illegal profits." Clark paled, but said nothing. Naomi Cole discovered the discrepancies and began her own investigation. On March 10th, Stone met with her to try to silence her. On March 12th, she was dead. "My client had nothing to do with Miss Cole's death," Harper interjected. "Perhaps, but he had something to do with her motive for murder." Lisa looked straight at Clark. "Naomi threatened to expose your scheme. For you, that meant not only losing your job, but also going to prison." Clark finally spoke. "I didn't kill anyone." "But you knew Stone was meeting with her?" Silence. "Mr. Clark, your refusal to grant Marcus time off for his sister's funeral was because you were afraid he might find out the truth about her death?" Clark flinched. "No, I mean, it was standard procedure." "Standard procedure doesn't prohibit short-term leave in exceptional circumstances. You deliberately denied him because you were afraid he would start asking questions." Harper put his hand on his client's shoulder. "Don't answer." But Clark had already broken down. "I didn't know what Stone was planning. He said he would just talk to her, convince her not to interfere in our affairs." "And what happened then?" "He said she agreed to keep quiet. And 2 days later she was dead. And you didn't wonder why?" Clark covered his face with his hands. "I hoped, it was just a coincidence." Lisa felt disgust for this man. He knew the truth but kept quiet to protect his scheme. "And now Marcus Cole is free and hunting you. What did he find in your house?" "Documents, bank statements, correspondence with Stone." "In other words, evidence of your guilt?" Clark nodded. Lisa stood up. "Mr. Clark, you're under arrest on suspicion of corruption and aiding and abetting murder." When Clark was taken away, Lisa urgently contacted the Organized Crime Division. Stone had to be arrested immediately before Marcus got to him. But when the police arrived at the med supply office, the building was empty. Stone had disappeared. Lisa drove to Stone's house in the upscale suburb of Oak Ridge. The mansion was dark, and there were no cars. Neighbors reported seeing Stone in the morning, but he had left in the afternoon with a large suitcase. "He's gone," Lisa told the sheriff on the phone. "He realized the game was up." "Where could Cole be?" "If Stone ran away, Marcus will be looking for him. We need to check the airports, train stations, hotels." But Lisa was wrong. Marcus Cole wasn't looking for Stone. He already knew where to find him. At 8 o'clock in the evening, Richard Stone was sitting in the bar of the Hilton Hotel on the outskirts of Springfield, trying to decide what to do next. His flight to Miami wasn't until tomorrow morning. Until then, he had to wait somewhere safe. He was on his 3rd whiskey when he noticed a man in a dark jacket sitting down at the next table. An ordinary guy, nothing remarkable. But something in his gaze made Stone wary. "Richard Stone?" the stranger asked quietly. Stone froze. "Who are you?" "Marcus Cole, Naomi's brother." Stone's heart began to race. He looked around for hotel security, but the bar was almost empty. The bartender stood far away, talking on the phone. "I don't know what you're talking about." Marcus slowly took a photograph out of his pocket. Naomi was in a hospital gown, smiling at the camera. "My sister. Do you remember her?" Stone tried to stand up, but Marcus quickly grabbed his wrist. His grip was like steel. "Sit down, we need to talk." "Listen, if this is about money..." "About money?" Marcus's voice was quiet, but there was icy fury in it. "You think this is about money?" Stone realized he had made a mistake. "No, that's not what I meant." "Tell me about your last meeting with Naomi." "We just talked. It was a business meeting." Marcus took out a second photo, Clark's bank statement with transfers from Med Supply. $500,000 in 2 years. Not bad for business meetings. Stone tried to free his hand, but Marcus held on tight. "What did you tell her on March 10th? "Nothing, just asked her not to interfere in our business." "And she agreed?" Stone paused, realizing that any answer could be fatal. "She agreed," he repeated. Marcus leaned closer. "You're lying. My sister would never agree to keep quiet about corruption. What did you do to her?" "Nothing. I swear I didn't do anything to her." "But you threatened her?" A long pause. Stone realized that denial was useless. "I told her she could get in trouble at work if she got involved." "What kind of trouble?" "That she could be fired. That no one would believe a nurse against respected people." "And?" Stone closed his eyes. "And that she could have an accident if she didn't get the hint." Marcus let go of his arm and slowly leaned back in his chair. "You threatened her." "Not me. They were just words. I wasn't going to hurt anyone." "Who was going to?" Stone realized he had said too much. "No one. They were empty threats." "Then why did she kill herself 2 days later?" "I don't know. Maybe she had other problems." Marcus took out the third document, a copy of Naomi's suicide note. "I can't go on, I'm sorry." He looked at Stone. "What was she sorry for? What couldn't she go on with?" Stone remained silent. "My sister killed herself because you intimidated her. She thought that if she stayed alive, she would put me in danger. That's why she chose death." "That's not true. I didn't kill anyone." "No, you just drove an innocent girl to suicide for money." Marcus stood up and put $20 on the table for drinks. "Where are you going?" Stone asked fearfully. "To get justice. Listen, we can work something out. I have money. I can..." Marcus stopped and turned around. Stone saw the verdict in his eyes. "Money won't bring my sister back." Stone waited for Marcus to leave, then quickly headed for the elevator. He had to get to his room, pack his things, and leave town immediately. It didn't matter where. The main thing was to get away from this madman. The elevator slowly rose to the 7th floor. Stone nervously pressed the buttons, urging the car on. When the doors finally opened, he jumped out into the hallway and quickly made his way to his room. The keycard trembled in his hands. The lock clicked, and Stone burst into the room, turning on the light. Marcus Cole was sitting in a chair by the window. "How are you?" "Fire escape, a useful skill for an ex-con." Stone backed toward the door, but it slammed shut behind him. "What do you want?" Marcus slowly stood up. "Justice for Naomi." "I didn't kill her." "No, but you killed her spirit. You destroyed her belief in justice." Stone noticed that Marcus's hands were empty. No weapon. "Listen, let's talk like civilized people." "Civilized?" Marcus sneered. "You call intimidating a defenseless girl civilized?" Stone backed toward the window. "It was business. Just business. For you. For me, she was my sister." Marcus took a step forward. Stone felt the cold glass of the window behind him. "What are you going to do?" "What the justice system should have done." Stone realized that words were useless. He lunged sideways, trying to get around Marcus and reach the door. But the ex-con was faster. He grabbed Stone and they fell to the floor, entangled in a struggle. Stone was older and heavier, but Marcus was in better shape. 5 years of prison training versus the life of a businessman. The outcome was a foregone conclusion. Marcus pinned Stone to the floor and pinned his arms down. "One last question. Who else knew about your plan to kill Naomi?" "No one was killed. It was suicide. You scared her to death. Who helped you?" "No one. I acted alone." Marcus looked into Stone's eyes and realized he was telling the truth. There were no accomplices. Just a greedy businessman willing to do anything for money. Naomi trusted the system. She believed that justice would prevail. You killed that belief. Marcus's hands closed around Stone's neck. "Now justice is in my hands." Stone tried to scream, but the grip was too strong. No air could reach his lungs. Black spots began to dance before his eyes. In his last moment of consciousness, he saw Marcus's face, calm, determined, without a trace of doubt. It was the face of a man administering justice. Marcus loosened his grip and checked Stone's pulse. Stone was gone. He stood up, looked around the room, and took the letter out of his pocket. The very letter Naomi had written before her death, which the police had found in her apartment. He placed it on Stone's chest. Justice had been served, but the case was not yet closed. The call came into the Springfield Police Department at 11:47 p.m. A maid at the Hilton Hotel discovered Richard Stone's body in room 712. Detective Lisa Stewart arrived at the scene 20 minutes later and immediately realized that Marcus Cole had begun his revenge. Stone was lying on the floor between the bed and the window. There were few signs of a struggle. An overturned chair, a crumpled sheet, a folded piece of paper lay on the dead man's chest. Lisa carefully unfolded it and recognized Naomi Cole's suicide note. "I can't go on, I'm sorry. Tell Marcus I love him." The message was clear. Marcus wanted everyone to understand the connection between Naomi's and Stone's deaths. This wasn't just murder, it was revenge. The medical examiner preliminarily determined the time of death to be between 9:30 and 10 p.m. Death by strangulation with bare hands, no signs of a weapon. There were clear fingerprints on Stone's neck, large male prints. Lisa checked the hotel registration records. Stone had checked in that morning under his own name and booked the room by phone. Surveillance cameras showed him entering the hotel at 4:20 p.m. with a large suitcase. He was last seen alive at 8:15 p.m. as he was heading down to the bar. "Are there any recordings from the cameras in the bar?" Lisa asked the hotel manager. "Yes, but the camera only covers the bar. The tables in the far corner are not visible." Lisa looked through the footage. Stone was indeed sitting at the bar, drinking whiskey. At 8:47 p.m., he stood up abruptly and headed for the elevators, clearly agitated. The footage did not show who he was talking to. Are there cameras on the 7th floor? One in the hallway by the elevators, another by the emergency exit. The footage showed Stone getting out of the elevator at 8:52 p.m. and quickly heading to his room. He didn't appear in the hallway again. However, at 10:15 p.m., the camera at the emergency exit captured a man in a dark jacket with a hood coming down the fire escape. His face was not visible, but his build matched Marcus Cole's description. Lisa immediately contacted the sheriff. "Tom, Stone is dead. Marcus Cole killed him an hour ago." "Damn. Where's Cole?" "He escaped via the fire escape. We need to reinforce Clark's security immediately." "He's in jail, under constant guard." "That might not be enough. Marcus spent 5 years studying this place. He knows every corner." Wilson paused. "Transfer Clark to the county courthouse. They have cells for highly dangerous suspects." "Okay, but do it quietly and quickly." Lisa finished examining the crime scene and drove to the station. On the way, she thought about Marcus's psychological state. He had methodically carried out his plan for revenge, but left clues that clearly pointed to him. Either he didn't care about the consequences, or he wanted to be caught after completing his mission. At the station, she received a call from FBI psychologist Dr. Sarah Chang, who had flown in from Columbus at the sheriff's request. "Detective Stewart? I've studied Marcus Cole's profile. He's a classic case of a vigilante driven by a sense of justice." "Doctor, can he be stopped through negotiation?" "It's difficult. He is convinced that his actions are justified. For him, it's not revenge, but restoring justice. People like this usually see things through to the end." "What if we offer him a deal? Life imprisonment instead of the death penalty?" "Possibly. But only after he completes his mission. As long as Clark is alive, Cole won't stop." Lisa thanked the psychologist and headed for the district court. The courthouse was old but well guarded. The holding cells were in the basement, behind 3 checkpoints. Clark sat in a solitary cell, pale and frightened. 2 guards stood watch nearby. "Mr. Clark, Richard Stone is dead." The former warden flinched. "Did he kill him?" "Marcus Cole, yes." "My God, what's going to happen to me now?" Lisa sat down opposite the bars. "That depends on you. Are you prepared to give a full statement against Stone and tell the whole truth about Naomi's death?" "I've already told you everything I know." Not everything. You hid the truth about the corruption scheme even from your own family. Does your wife know where you got the money for your house in West Hills? Clark lowered his head. No. Do your children know that their father is a thief? I beg you. Mr. Clark, Marcus Cole lost the only person he ever loved because of your greed. Right now, he's out there somewhere planning to kill you. The only way to stop him is to publicly admit your guilt and ensure that you receive a fair punishment. You're suggesting that I turn myself in to the media? I'm suggesting that you take responsibility for your actions. Clark was silent for a long time. And if I refuse, then tomorrow morning you may be dead. At that moment, a man dressed as a maintenance worker entered the courthouse through a service entrance. The security guard at the entrance checked his ID. Mike Davis, an electrician with Springfield Electric, called to repair the lighting in the basement. The documents looked genuine. The guard let him in. Marcus Cole had spent 3 hours preparing the fake documents and forms. Another hour was spent studying the layout of the courthouse using publicly available architectural drawings at the city library. He went down to the basement with a toolbox. There was one security guard on duty in the hallway reading a newspaper and drinking coffee. Marcus approached him. Good evening. Has someone called for an electrician? The guard looked up. I don't know. I haven't been told anything. There's a problem with the lighting in the cells. It needs urgent repair. Wait, I'll check. As the guard reached for his radio, Marcus hit him on the back of the head with a heavy wrench. The man lost consciousness but remained alive. Marcus didn't kill innocent people. He took the keys and walked over to the cells. Clark was sitting in the third cell, talking to Detective Stewart. Perfect. Marcus quietly approached the bars. Sean Clark. Both men turned around. Lisa instinctively reached for her gun, but Marcus raised his hands to show he wasn't armed. Marcus Cole, she said, you're under arrest for the murder of Richard Stone. I know. His voice was calm. But first I need to talk to him. He pointed to Clark, who was cowering in the corner of the cell. Marcus, stop. The justice system will punish those responsible. The system? Marcus sneered. The same system that denied me leave to attend my sister's funeral? That conducted a formal investigation into her death? We will arrest everyone responsible. Justice will prevail. Detective Stewart, my sister believed in justice. She gathered evidence, wanted to do everything by the book. And what did she get? Marcus took a photo of Naomi out of his pocket. Threats, intimidation, death. He looked at Clark. And this man continued to profit from the suffering of prisoners. I didn't kill your sister, Clark shouted. No, but you created the conditions for her murder. Your greed led to her death. Lisa slowly backed away toward the alarm button. Marcus, killing Clark won't bring Naomi back, but it will show that actions have consequences. And your actions? What will be the consequences for you? Marcus shrugged. Life in prison, maybe the death penalty. It doesn't matter. It matters. Naomi wouldn't want you to ruin your life for revenge. This isn't revenge. It's justice. Lisa realized that words were useless. She pressed the alarm button and simultaneously grabbed the gun. Marcus, step away from the camera. But Marcus had already inserted the key into the lock. The cell door opened. Clark pressed himself against the wall, trembling with fear. Please, I have a family, children. Naomi had a family too. Me. Marcus entered the cell. Lisa aimed at him but couldn't shoot. He was too close to Clark. Last words? Marcus asked the former ward. I'm sorry. I admit my guilt. I'll return all the money. Money won't bring my sister back. Marcus took a step forward, but at that moment, footsteps sounded in the hallway. Reinforcements had arrived. Marcus, surrender, Lisa shouted. You're surrounded. Marcus stopped. He turned to her. Detective, I'm not resisting. I just want to finish what Naomi started. She started the investigation to restore justice, not to kill people. Sometimes justice requires extreme measures. 4 officers appeared in the hallway with their weapons at the ready. Cole, come out with your hands up. Marcus looked at Clark, then at Lisa. Do you promise a fair trial? Do you promise that the whole truth will come out? I promise. And that Clark will receive the punishment he deserves? Yes. Marcus nodded and raised his hands. Then I surrender. The officers rushed into the cell and threw him to the floor. Handcuffs clicked around his wrists. Clark collapsed on the floor, sobbing with relief. "Why?" Lisa asked as Marcus was being lifted to his feet. "Why did you stop at the last moment?" Marcus looked at her with tired eyes. "Because Naomi believed in justice. Real justice, not revenge." He was led away, and Lisa was left with the understanding that this case had changed everyone involved. Marcus would serve a life sentence for Stone's murder. Clark would spend years in prison for corruption. Justice had prevailed, but at what cost? A month later, Lisa visited Marcus in the state prison. "Do you regret what you did?" she asked. Marcus was silent for a long time. "About killing Stone? No. He deserved to die. I regret that I couldn't stop myself sooner. That Naomi didn't live to see the day when justice was served through legal means. She would have been proud of you for stopping." Marcus smiled sadly. "I hope so." The case was closed, but the consequences lingered. The corruption scheme in the prison was completely exposed, and several people were arrested. The medical care system for prisoners was reformed.